something that might be the greatest thing ever.
Oh,
We
okay.
did get an interview with Hakuto Akamoto.
Good on you for saying that name.
Yeah, I tried my best. About a Dragon Quest 11 interview, and he's the producer of the game, and he talks about the Switch version, the localization, and the story, and a couple other things. And I'm actually reading this from a Dual Shockers article. He did bring up a few things about why the 3DS version didn't come up, or why the Switch version is taking much longer, and why they decided not to do open world with this game and just kind of keep it more like Dragon Quest VIII, where you're traveling through a set world map. Cool. So there's a lot of stuff in here. It's kind of hard to kind of all say at once, but I can kind of just cliff note here the best I can. The reason why the Switch version isn't coming out right now is because they were using a different form of the Unreal Engine that was coming out. And they were in a different version, it was in development, and the Switch wasn't. They didn't get development kits for the Switch yet. So when they finally did get development kits for the Switch, they looked at it and they said to themselves, "Uh-oh, this is like, we have to put it on like for like not an entirely different engine, but like a more like Switch oriented version of the Unreal Engine." So they kind of had to redo things on that end to get it working on there, and it's just taking longer than they thought. So a Switch version will eventually come out for Japan and America, but not right when it's coming out in September. So it'll probably be 2019.
Yeah. One thing I did see that kind of made sense with me with that was, I like you were saying, when they were developing it for the Unreal Engine, and then they didn't really have the specs for the Nintendo Switch. And after the specs came out, they realized, well, it's for a newer version of the Unreal Engine. They've been looking at like all the things they have to do to update it so it can play on the Switch. And they said that it's just like you said, it's going to take a long time. And what I thought was interesting was they thought about waiting to release Dragon Quest XI in the West until it was available for the Switch, like at launch, so it could all come out at the same time. And they said, well, you know, we don't want to keep waiting. They like, the Western gamers have already waited long enough. The Japanese game has been out since last summer, I believe. And, you know, all these Western gamers are wondering, like, when's this game going to come out for us? And they said like the amount of time it would take them to get it ready for the Switch and to have it available at launch, it would just be too far in the future. They don't want to have players just waiting. And there's two things I found interesting about that. Firstly, everyone who was speculating about the Switch version coming out later, they were saying, well, this is clearly because they want you to buy the PS4 version and the Switch version. So, you know, if they had it at launch, people would choose which version they played. So this is all about making money. Well, clearly this kind of makes sense. You know, that it's going to take them a long time and they don't want to keep us waiting. But also, you know, hey, you should probably talk to, you know, other people at Square Enix about, I don't know, keeping people waiting for unreasonable amounts of time. I mean, this makes sense. I mean, you might as well just, that's what I would have done. I've been like, hey, let's just come out with the PS4 version now. And we're just going to, you know, have the Switch come out later. And let's just be honest. We don't know when it's coming out, but don't hold your breath. It's going to be a really long time.
Yeah. Then they talk about the 3DS version. And it's kind of what they were saying before, but and he's just kind of reiterating it again. It's like the console versions will just probably do a lot better. The 3DS is kind of like at the end of its thing. And they mentioned that it's been 13 years since a console Dragon Quest came out, like in America also. So it wants to get one out there. And I think it would take much longer if they were doing both the all three, PS4, PC, and 3DS at the same time. So they just wanted to really get it out there, is from what it sounds like, which makes sense. Like I said before, I'm disappointed the 3DS version didn't come over.
Yeah.
But I do understand on a business side why they decided not to do it. I mean, the 3DS is near the end of its life cycle. I think it's got a little more punch at 2019, but I really don't see the console coming out past that. And to get that localized, I mean, it's not easy. It's there's a lot of text you have to translate, and you can't simply just translate the PS4 version text over to that. I mean, it's
Sure.
You have to translate everything from itself. So likely they would get Nintendo again to do it, and that probably costs more. And they think to themselves, is this worth bringing over? And they probably just bounced it out and said, no, it's not. The
Well,
PS4 and PC version will do.
Yeah, and there's other things I think you can think about too. I mean, they're probably looking at the West, and I did see in that article where they're really trying to push for having Dragon Quest popular in the West like it is in Japan. And they probably looked at Western gamers and saw that mobile gaming in general is kind of frowned upon, or it's like kind of has this tinge like it's of lesser quality. And I did see somewhere where another consideration they had for releasing it on the 3DS in Japan was that the DQ series has been, around 30, 31 years now. And people are very nostalgic about it. And most of the Western fans of Dragon Quest probably got into it like around the PS1, PS2 era. And they went back and played the other games, but I saw somewhere where they felt like Western gamers were not going to be as nostalgic about those old school games as Japanese gamers. So I don't know if I agree with that, but I do think that, it makes sense with them looking over here and saying, hey, okay, well, Western gamers generally don't like mobile games, or they're kind of frowned upon. If we're really trying to conquer the Western market, do we want our game associated with something Western cultures view as lower quality? I mean, I can see why they made that decision, but I would have preferred to play it in the 3DS version personally, but
I mean, I'm going to say I prefer to play the PS4 version, but if they had
I would
both,
prefer
I would
to have the 3DS version. Let me say that.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, Builders and Heroes 1 and 2 sold actually pretty well here.
Mm-hmm.
So I think as long as they market it right and really go heavy on the marketing, then I think Dragon Quest XI will probably sell very well. I think people, at least on the niche side of things, are really itching for a good RPG that doesn't have a lot of the bells and whistles and crap that like a lot of modern games are doing today, like certain Final Fantasy I won't mention, but Dragon Quest is really just taking everything back to like roots, like even down to just the way the gameplay is. There is no anything added to it. There is just the game itself, and they do mention in this interview that it is actually a really long game. It's good. They said it'll take about a first playthrough for someone about 80 hours to beat the game. It is very big.
I think they said 80 to 100, which
I guess if you do the side quests, it's probably 100.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I didn't know if they were accounting for like if you're really experienced with Dragon Quest, maybe 80, but yeah, dude, that's a long time. And I'm starting to see with JRPGs like that's pretty trendy right now. Xenoblade 2 that takes forever to beat. Persona 5 that takes forever to beat. So, yeah, man, you're getting your money's worth. I did see where they said there's going to be a heavy story focus with this game, and that's one of the reasons why they didn't want to go the open world.
Yeah, they talked about that, and they said it was like any reason you didn't want to do open world. And I was like, well, we definitely considered it, but the way that we're trying to tell the story and how much content is in it, and the fact that it's like 80 to 100 hours to beat a game, it's like the open world just wouldn't do much to contribute to it. So they just wanted to keep everything streamlined and focused to they said they wouldn't rule out the possibility of Dragon Quest becoming open world in the future, but for what they had set and designed for DQ11, that for this game itself, that an open world would not be appropriate for it.
And that's awesome, because I think there's other games, not to be mentioned, that were not suited for open world either. So good decision there.
Yeah, they knew what it was, and they looked at their storyboard and they're like, yeah, open world's not going to work. And on top of that, they said it takes a lot more time and costs a lot more money to create that open world. So I would imagine if you're trying to tell an 80 to 100 hour story, that the open world is just gonna get in the way a lot more than be beneficial.
Yeah. So, and I did see where they said Dragon Quest X, the online game that was not released in anywhere outside of Japan. They said that it could come to the West if 11 does well. So that was interesting.
I really hope that's the case, because they have a lot of content over there for Dragon Quest X now. I don't care if they go back to the base version first.
I can't see you balancing your time between Dragon Quest X and Final Fantasy 14.
Oh man, if they brought Dragon Quest X over here, I would definitely have to. I would definitely have to make a right balance there, and like decide which one I want to be a hardcore. Because FF14 is a beautiful game in a lot of aspects, but yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, I'm really a Dragon Quest boy. So, I guess the way Dragon Quest X is built, also from what I've seen and heard, is that there is an end game to it, but it isn't like a very hardcore one. So you could kind of just like put some time into it and put some time into another, and FF14 has its times where not too much is going on before a major patch hits, so that could always be more time for that also. I would need a better understanding of how DQ10 works, because I have never played it, so I can't comment too much on the online aspect of it. But I mean, I would definitely grab it day one. So I really hope DQ11 is successful enough to at least put it on the PC and PS4.
Yeah, I mean, come on now. Online games you can make a ton of money off that, so I think it'll probably come over. I don't see any reason why they wouldn't. I mean, especially because I think one of the reasons Dragon Quest X did not do as well as they wanted in the West was because it wasn't a mobile game, I believe, right? That's what I was reading anyways. That
DQ10 you can currently play on they shut down the Wii one. It originally came out on the Wii, but they shut that console version down. Mm-hmm. You can play it on the Wii U, the PS4, the Switch, and the 3DS and PC.
Okay, so I
know on
back.
top of my head. But okay. I think if they did bring it over here, I would guess they would do just PS4 and PC.
Yeah, that would make sense to me.
Possibly Switch. Switch might be possible, but I think I know definitely it would be PS4 and PC. The original reason why DQ10 wasn't brought over here was because it was one, they were worried that it wouldn't do too well here. And the second thing was that they didn't have a proper management team for it. And they thought it would be too much trouble to get a team together for a game that might not be successful over here. So if they see from DQ11 that it's successful, then they'll say to themselves, yeah, I mean, it's booming with sales, and the online game will definitely draw people in. Let's get it happening. So yeah. I really hope that's a thing.
Yeah, I think that would be cool. I mean, I'd give it a shot. Like I said, I'm usually don't go too hardcore with online games, but I'm definitely willing to give it a shot if it comes out.